Hello, it's me here, and this is Grim Dawn, a gritty, post-apocalyptic fantasy ARPG. Originally released in 2016, we've had a plethora of updates since then. We've also got a new DLC coming just over the horizon. So today I'm going to be looking at the experience players can expect within Grim Dawn in 2024. But enough of that, let's dive in. To catch you chaps up with the backstory, essentially we are possessed by an ethereal. We were almost hung, somehow managed to survive, and we begin our journey right at the spot where we almost died. Speaking to the fella who almost killed us, he tells us to head into town and talk to a guy called John. Speaking to Don John, who appears to be the de facto leader of this area, he tells us that he is having issues with zombies. I've definitely heard that one before. He then sends us out to try and find the source of what could be reanimating the zombies nearby. So we head on out into this gritty world. It doesn't take long to stumble into our first set of enemies. Equipped with what I can only describe as a chair leg wrapped with rags, we hastily put down our first set of foes. Alright, fine, not too hastily. Looks like we wandered into a spot of bother here. Well, let's get to work. This poor gentleman just saw me hand an absolute beating to all of his pals and attempts to run away. Unfortunately for him, that is not part of the itinerary for today. Nicely done. A couple of kills later, we get our very first level up. Here we get a little peek at all the classes within Grim Dawn. We have 9 different classes to choose from. For the purposes of today, we are going to go with the Occultist. Essentially a naughty wizard who likes to dabble with forbidden magic. Delegating points to the bottom bar allows you to progress further within the tree, unlocking skills and passives. For right now, we're going to get Evil Eye and Summon Familiar. Each time you level up, you get yourself a cheeky attribute point. This can then be assigned to one of 3 stats. We are going with Spirit because this scales with our main attack. Hey, look at that. Birdie buddy. Evil Eye is a poison and acid projectile which does damage on impact and a bit of dot damage. And our Familiar is just going to do bird things. Hitting level 3 and then walking into this dilapidated looking house, we come across something rather special. This greatsword here is a massive upgrade, and we take those. Trying this sucker out for the first time, and that will suffice nicely. Throughout Grim Dawn, you can find lore logs which give you a little glimpse into the lore of the world, as well as a bit of XP. A little bit down the beaten path, we come across our first elite. This social butterfly seems to have a lot of friends, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I wasn't a little bit jealous. Channeling my inner loneliness into unquenchable anger, we slap down this popular boy. Hitting level 4, we progress further down the tree to unlock Bloodburst. This causes Evil Eye to explode and shower nearby enemies. Delightful. While wandering through the wilderness, we sense a civilian in need of aid. Naturally, we proceed to kick in his front door. We then shove him into a rift gate, sending him back to Devil's Crossing. And then his back door, for good measure. A job well done. Further north, we find ourselves in a new zone. We also come across a rift. This is essentially the fast travel mechanism within Grim Dawn. After travelling back to base, we are looking at the loot filter here. We are going to disable common items, because we are not absolute peasants. Back out into the action. The source of the dead is near. Undoubtedly the place we are looking for. Nothing overly exciting happening here, but we do have a couple of flamey boys at the back. Putting them out of their misery is no issue. Deeper within, we come across the reanimator. Just a guess here, but I've got a feeling this might be the chap reanimating people around Devil's Crossing. He has a frustrating tendency to reanimate zombies. Shocking, I know. He also likes to chuck exploding corruption bombs. He has us seriously outgunned, especially compared to our little pea shooter. After a seemingly endless barrage of pea shots, he finally accepts his fate. Further into the cave, we are introduced into devotion shrines. These stony statues unlock points which you can spend within the devotion tree, another further option to help you customize your build. Offering up a aether crystal, we get rewarded with a devotion point. Splendid. This is the sprawling devotion tree. It gives you a decent amount of options to customize your build to your heart's content. A feature I personally appreciate is this handy search filter. You can simply type in any keyword you so desire, and any tree related to that keyword will pop up in red, making it super simple to progress the build you're trying to make. Because we are a acid and poison damage build, we are going into the Wretch skill tree here. We don't quite have enough points to put into the Wretch yet, but we have popped a point into the Crossroads. While heading back to town, we come across a rather inviting cave entrance, so we head in and have a little explore. This, however, was a massive mistake. This place was absolutely filled to the brim with spiky-tailed demons. They piled on us like we were a tantalizing piece of meat. Dying within Grim Dawn, you do lose a little bit of experience, but you can go back to the point at which you died in order to regain some of it back, somewhat similar to Dark Souls. Seemingly undeterred by the fact we got our asses absolutely handed to us, we go back for round 2. This time will be different, however, because we've devised a plan. I present to you running around in circles. Not the most elegant solution, but the plan did come through. Just about. This, however, was just a mere taster of what we would find deeper within. Behold, Duskill the Hoarder. And yes, I know what you're thinking. That is correct, a boss version of the enemies we were already fighting. Surely there is no hope. Now this Stinky Sonic has a few different attacks, including Stinky Bomb, Stinky Spikes, Stinky Wave, but most concerningly of all, Stinky Tail Spike thing, the latter being a must-avoid due to its ungodly damage. Now this was a rather drawn-out engagement, which involved us mainly avoiding his attacks and slowly chipping away at his health. I would really like to emphasize mainly, because, yeah. After a epic back and forth, we managed to come through with the victory. After the dust settled, we proceeded to cut off his tail and then brandish it as a weapon, giving us some decent poison and acid damage. After that painful random encounter, we informed Don John that the reanimator is no longer among us. Our next job is to help out the folk around the town. This gentleman here wants to get revenge for his wife by sending someone out to do his dirty work. He would like us to take out 3 different monsters. Coincidentally, we've already taken out one of them. We are now allowed to actually go inside Devil's Crossing. This crazed scientist wants us to participate in some sort of wacky experiment. Sure. This supposedly turned out fine because we got ourselves a juicy extra skill point. He also gives us another quest to try and find his apprentice. Barnabas, the handyman here, wanted some scrap in order to fix the water pumps. We already had the scrap necessary, so this was easy enough. Handing in this quest actually changed the visuals for the pump, which I can appreciate. Barnabas then asks us to clear out the cellar nearby. Apparently it is infested with sliffs, and they are polluting the water supply. Inside the town we come across a civilian whose door we absolutely splintered. Essentially this conversation boiled down to him going, "Thanks." We take it, some easy experience. This lass up here wants us to find her brother Milton. He's gone missing in the nearby area. At the top of the encampment you can come across the spirit guide. This lady will help you reset your skills and devotion points at a fairly low cost, so it's easy to retweak any build ideas you may have. Last stop of the grand tour of Devil's Crossing, we have the Banker, which the devs have decided to call a smuggler. I actually find this quite comical. Perhaps a nod to banks being criminal. Or not, I'm probably just reading way too much into this. After holding on to a build-changing amount of skill points for no good reason, we thought it was good cause to put some points into Focused Gaze. This completely changes our main attack into something a little bit more explosive. Trying this sucker out for the first time, and yeah, it's pretty good. I always enjoy it when you unlock a new skill and it completely changes one of your main attacks. There's just something about it. Heading further north, we come across a guarded rift gate, giving us a better chance to try out our new exploding ability. It appears to be extremely overpowered for this point in the game, and that is fine by me. Even further north, we find ourselves a little encampment. This chap here asks for some sliff necklaces, which apparently we already have. That's efficiency. Within Grimdawn, you have certain factions, in which you can gain or damage reputation by doing certain activities. This can then give you certain benefits, such as unlocking items in a faction store. In some nameless cavern, we come across a devotion shrine. It is simply guarded by some enemies that we have to kill in order to get ourselves a devotion point. At level 10, you can actually branch off into a completely different class, opening up the option to multi-class. We, however, are going to go for the vanilla Occultist. We're going to give our avian friend here the ability Mend Flesh, which allows him to heal nearby allies. Wandering around, we come across Milton. It appears he's looking rather red. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it is fairly unusual. Not as unusual as spitting flames, however. That's Milton Melted. A little bit further down, we come across one of the enemies we needed to kill for the Something for Nothing quest. Our poison bomb seems to be doing the carrying here. Looks like the poison dot saw him off. Back to Devil's Crossing, and we inform this poor lass that Milton had turned into some kind of massive red mutant, who we had to kill. We receive an enchanted amulet for our efforts. This amulet was supposed to keep Milton strong. This whole thing reeks of absolute scam. In the end, this amulet wasn't enough. But there you go. Finally remembering that we have a devotion point, it's probably best we pop that in, giving us a bit of acid damage. Back on the warpath, we come across Negan, the final guy we have to kill in order to complete that quest. We decide to deploy the running around in circles and occasionally hurling a bomb his way tactic. It worked out great. We then head back to town to hand in that quest, then thinking it's probably a good idea that we clear out that cellar, the one where the sliffs are poisoning the water supply. That probably should take priority in a post-apocalyptic world. Definitely an interesting place to keep your water supply. It appears to be littered with werewolves and spiky rats. Deeper inside, we come across the ringleader, who is no match for us at this point in the game. Further in, we have a little discovery. One more cheeky devotion shrine under our belt. Mr. Snaky Big Boss was nice enough to give us this ring. A little bump to our acid damage.
Any luck clearing out those sliths? We're starting to beg me for water.
We then go and inform Barnabas that we've cleared out the cellar and sorted out the water supply.
One more thing. Take my rucksack.
We receive a backpack giving us extra inventory slots for our efforts. After helping all the townfolk, we talk to Don John, who'd like us to secure a rift gate up in Burwich Village. Throughout the game, you can come across components. You can add these to your gear in order to add further attunements to them. We added some ichor to our weapons to add some poison damage, some frozen hearts for health and cold resistance, some plating just to add a little bit of armor, and some corpse dust for even more health. That should suffice for now. Time to go and get us a rift gate. It looks like here you can repair this bridge if you have the right components, which we of course do not. It does look like there is another way through a flooded passage. After a level up here, we got some points to distribute. Going to put a point into Terrifying Gaze, which can stun and confuse enemies. Ah, cheeky off-map secret. Places like this are always worth exploring. No, it wasn't. We've got ourselves another devotion shrine. Well, that was easy. Going to pop in those devotion points now. Looks like we've only got one more point of Wretch to get. 24% acid damage. That could be big. the ancient shambler. Time to employ our tried and tested tactic of running around in circles. It seemed to be super effective. Looks like that shambling chap dropped us some molten walkers, which doesn't actually help with our build in any way, shape or form, but they look good. They're staying on. Back to the outskirts, we stumble into a small encampment.
Oh, hello, traveler.
Duncan here is in search of some sort of sacred hammer. He also turns out to be a blacksmith, which could be extremely valuable. One sacred hammer coming up. While rifling around in our bag, we discover this. 67% acid damage. That's big. We make our way to the chap who supposedly has the hammer and manage to convince him to give it to us. Was very tempted to kill him. Give me a funny look. Nevertheless, we got the hammer. Here you go, Duncan. He's now going to join us back at Devil's Crossing as a blacksmith. Got a devotion point here to round out the wretch tree. Marvellous. While out exploring, we come across a very ominous cave, followed by a very ominous message. The presence far more powerful than you dwells within this place. Realising this message was no joke, we make a tactical retreat. We finally manage to make our way up to the village. Find the rift gate within, clear it without sweat, and start to head back to tell Don John of a job well done. Say that 3 times fast. Back at Devil's Crossing, we tell Don John that we got the rift gate secure. We are then informed about the Warden, who is doing some not so safe activities within his cellar. We are tasked to find him and take him out. We make our way to the estate, stumbling across a devotion shrine, clear that bad boy out and get ourselves another juicy devotion point. After clearing that out, we find the entrance to the dank cellar. Not the cellar we're looking for, however. We do come across the scientist's apprentice. We have a little chat and shove her for a rift gate. Back at base, looking through our spoils, I found this absolute gem. Soiled trousers. The description reads, reach into the seat of your pants and pull out something that is certain to alarm your enemies. Majestic. After welcoming back the apprentice, we have reached the status of friendly within Devil's Crossing. This also unlocks the ability to salvage items. We can either keep the item or the components within. Back out in the field, we find an interesting item that summons a guardian. This gives me an idea for completely changing up a build into a pet one. Seeing as our build is completely built up around doing acid damage, should I change this? No. Will I? Yeah. So we keenly head back to the spirit guide, refund all of our points, and then pump all of our points into the summon familiar skill tree. Because we no longer have Evil Eye, I'm going to put a Searing Ember into our weapons. This will unlock a new skill, Fire Blast. At this point I really wish I remembered the soiled trousers and the new skill it granted. Throw feces. But here we are. Moving on, this lady wanted some fabric in order to pimp up the base, which of course we already had. But enough of this. We've got a bird to take out on a test flight. I mean, it seems pretty strong. We find the Warden's mansion, clear out the residence, and find his cellar. So I'm really having second thoughts about this build change-up. Under further testing, it really doesn't seem too good, but I'm determined to see it through. Within the cellar, we come across a totem. Activate it, which we instantly regret. This fight is definitely a little bit spicy. Too many close calls to count, and some valiant running away. We just about get the job done. Look at this fireball flinging speed right here. It's beautiful. We also have 0 resource issues, so we could do this all day. And I could, but we've got stuff to do. Just give me a minute. We eventually flame ball our way into the underground jail. At this point it is glaringly obvious that the build switch up was not a great idea. I've mentioned this before, but we are completely specced into acid and poison damage, so this new electric birdie build isn't getting the job done. Still determined though. I'm hoping we can make this work somehow, but we've probably just made it extremely painful for ourselves. Only one way to find out. We got there in the end. We come across a big old spooky door which no doubt leads to the Warden. Feeling a little bit spooked, it's probably best to go to town and prepare a little first. So we sell off loads of unwanted gear, we stack up on components as much as we possibly can, and hope that this is enough to take on the boss of the first chapter. There is definitely a deep-seated feeling of doubt here. Back to the underground jail, open the spooky door, and here he is. The Warden. Right off the bat, he does about 1/3 of our health with one casual backhand. A promising start. Since we put all of our eggs in one basket, this is going to be down to our avian accomplice. Alright, so far so good. We're just keeping our distance and letting our feathery friend just go to town.
And when I'm done with you, I will crush your friends at Devil's Crossing.
This chap really enjoys taunting us. Looks like we are heading into phase 2 here. He sounds upset. My prior concern was justified. These fireballs do absolutely nothing. Just as the feeling of self-doubt reaches an all-time high, we manage to proc our Guardian skill, who instantly dies. Great build idea here. The Warden is looking a little worse for wear, but one minor misstep and that could be the end of us. Lo and behold, that misstep happened. That was a little close. Not too sure how we did it, but we did it. We definitely made things a lot more difficult for ourselves, but our determination came through in the end. We report back to Don John that the Warden is dead, and that just about wraps up the first act of the game. So yeah, that was that. I really appreciate your time. Stay happy, and I'll see you around.